Hello everybody. So one thing I've tried to do with this channel is profile a variety of decks, new, old, meta, non-meta. So today I'm going to profile an XYZ era deck that is way past its prime, Heroic. I did a profile of Digital Bug and of Battling Boxer as well, so this July 2020 Heroic deck is right up this channel's alley in my opinion. It obviously won't stand a chance versus the special summon heavy decks of today's meta, but for a fun duel or for a retro style duel, it's still a very cool deck and also budget at this point. I tried to keep it as true to what a Heroic deck should look like, but with some newer cards that would make it as current and as strong as it can be at the same time. So we start with 3 Heroic Challenger Assault Halberd. This is by far the best Heroic monster to open in this deck because it special summons itself when only your opponent controls a monster. This is the main way to get more than one monster on the field in one turn. This card does Piercing 2 and also searches a Heroic card when it inflicts battle damage. This card outclasses almost all the other monsters in this archetype by a long shot, so this is definitely a 3 of in this deck. So 3 Heroic Challenger Thousand Blades. This card is an even better overall card than Assault Halberd generally, but it's slightly worse to open in this deck. It does special summon from the deck if you discard a Heroic card, which is how you can easily go into rank 4s, but what makes this card so strong and splashable in many more decks than just Heroic is that it special summons itself from the graveyard, which you can do every turn if you take damage. Its second effect is a hard once per turn, but its first to special summon from the deck is not, so I have this card at 3 still in this deck. Assault Halberd and Thousand Blades are pretty much the only Heroic monsters in the main deck that are of any use in a way that is comparable to today's standards of Yu-Gi-Oh! So 3 Double Lance. Specials a copy of itself from hand or grave upon normal summon. So besides the part about specialing from the hand, this card is flat out worse than something like Battling Boxer Switch Hitter because Double Lance only special summons another copy of itself, and it's far worse than something like Tellarknight Altair, which special summons from the grave upon any kind of summon instead of just upon normal. So still, I needed to fill up the monster engine. Playing a Heroic deck, this is one of the best options still. 2 Sword Shield. This card is a hand trap that stops all your Heroic monsters from being destroyed by battle and stops you from taking battle damage this turn if you control a Heroic monster. This effect is useful for protecting your monsters, and it ties into the theme and emphasis of battle that this deck has, as you will see with some of the other cards in this deck. So now on to the monsters that you have to include. 1, because you need to fill up the slots, and 2, because I tried to make this a legitimately Heroic deck, or true to the Heroic archetype, but they're far worse than what the few monsters were. Spartan gains attack equal to your other Heroic monster's attack when your opponent declares an attack, but needless to say, the opponent can just attack your other monster first, seeing that Spartan only buffs itself. 1 extra sword. So this card is the Heroic version of Digital Bug's Bachi Bachi Bachi, which buffs an XYZ monster that used it as material with something, and in this case it's giving it 1000 attack. This card is pretty horrible for all the reasons that you can probably think of. You have to normal summon it. There are better normals in this deck. Its effect is only something that some spells, traps, and extra deck monsters do in this deck as well, but only better. So not the best card in this deck, but still trying to be true to the archetype here. 1 Clasp Sword. So this card searches a Heroic monster when it is special summoned by the effect of a Heroic monster, which pretty much has to be Ambush Soldier. So it's very situational on its own, so I included Foolish Burial in the main deck to send this card to the graveyard more easily. And then 1 Ambush Soldier. So this card specials up to 2 Heroic Challenger monsters from the hand or graveyard, but you have to tribute it during the standby phase to do this. So this is the only way, at least that I know of, to special summon Clasp Sword and get its effect. So this combo, it's really hard to pull off, and the reward isn't even that great, but I could have included more Ambush Soldiers to make this combo with these 2 a little more consistent, but Ambush Soldier forces you to wait until the standby phase, and also you need monsters preferably in the graveyard, not the hand, so it isn't ideal to open this card, so that's why I have it at 1. Last Heroic monster in the main deck is a Warhammer. So this is the main deck boss monster, or the makeshift boss monster if you play this unfinished archetype in Duel Links. This card can be a beat stick if you manage to run over your opponent's monster, but that's pretty much all it does is have high attack, so it probably won't survive long, not to mention that you have to tribute summon it. 3 times Effect Veiler. So like I say with a lot of decks, this could easily be any other hand trap, but I want it to be true to this deck's relative cost as well. 2 times Nibiru. So this card can go in just about any deck nowadays and is a great way to make the deck more competitive while still doing the archetype justice. So this could easily be Kaijus or Impermanence or any other good splashable card. For the spells, 3 Heroic Chance. This card doubles the attack of a heroic monster you control. So being a spell and not a trap, this card is fast and actually quite good and can make your Excalibur have 8,000 attack if you use Excalibur before Chance. 3 times Twin Twisters. Totally a player's choice here, but given the time when this deck was at its peak and when traps were much more relevant, it feels like a good fit to have this card in the main deck. 1 Rhoda, so obvious choice for a warrior deck. 1 Monster Reborn. I really like putting Monster Reborn in older decks because these older decks often lack ways to put multiple monsters on the field in one turn. 1 Foolish Burial, so this is to send Clasp Sword, like I said, to the graveyard, or more importantly, Thousand Blades to the graveyard. And now we have some equip spells. Pretty standard choices, except for the XYZ unit, which could be a Noble Arms card, if you prefer that. But like Battling Boxer, Isolde in this deck makes this deck a lot stronger and gives you a chance of putting multiple extra deck monsters on the field in one turn, or on the first turn. 3 Solemn Judgment. So you need some defense in a slow deck like this that doesn't have the greatest offense. And finally for the main deck, 2 Heroic Advance. So another card here that emphasizes battle. So when your heroic monster is targeted for an attack, it switches the target to another level 4 or lower heroic monster, so not an XYZ monster, and also doubles that other monster's attack. So basically it's the Heroic Chance spell card, but as a quick effect, providing you with a little bit of interruption, which this deck needs pretty badly. So for the extra deck, 2 times Excalibur. This is how you sneak a 4K beater onto the field with only 2 materials. And all of these heroic champion XYZ monsters only require warriors, so they can be put into Tellarknight or Battling Boxer or possibly Noble Knight too. 2 times Gandiva. Once per turn, you can destroy a level 4 or lower special summoned monster on your opponent's field. It can be used depending on the deck you play against a lot, especially if you put this card on the field on the first turn when your opponent is using their extenders, something like Junk Forward, Phantom Knight's Boots. 2 times Kusanagi. Negates spell speed 2 traps, but it does require 3 materials, so most of the time you'll only have 2 materials on the field at your disposal. So I use this card less frequently in my experience. 1 Dweller and a Tornado Dragon, so some of the go-to XYZ monsters in a rank 4 style deck. 1 Time Thief Redoer, so attach the top card of your opponent's deck to this card, then forget you have their card and take it to the next match. But all jokes aside, this card is another go-to rank 4 that is most useful for drawing cards if you play against a spell-heavy deck. And this is a newer rank 4 option, but it's an updated rank 4 deck, so it feels like a good fit. Then we got the Utopia package, so even though I already have Excalibur in the extra deck, I felt like this was a better fit than Borrelsword because it only requires 2 materials, unlike Borrelsword, which requires 4, and you oftentimes won't have that many materials on your side of the field, and also this deck emphasizes battle, so just more of the same kind of theme. The last XYZ is a Lionheart. This card is here because Ambush Soldier can turn your heroic monsters into level 1, and this is one of the strongest rank 1s and is another card that focuses on battle. You can either make both players take battle damage from attacks involving this card or just your opponent. And then for the links, only 3 Isolde, so another way to search in this deck besides Assault Halberd, and just a great overall play extender to put more materials on the field. Also the Earthcharmer, yet another way to search in this deck if this card is destroyed. And finally a Borlo Dragon, so I didn't want to include something like Appaloosa in this deck because I wanted it to be look at my cool heroic deck, not look at my cool Appaloosa. But anyways, Borreload, it can be just as useful, and it's a much more budget option at this point, so it's suited to this kind of a deck. So thanks for watching my heroic deck profile for July 2020. The next video will be Super Heavy Samurai. See you later.